that clap. What's happening, ladies and gents? Welcome to another nursing debriefing with the couple nurses. We just wrapped up week number 4.
Yeah, a quick question right off the rip.
What's up?
That condom catheter you put on, did it stay on?
I told the nurse about it, guys. So I had a hard time. Peter and I were in there, 3 condom caths. That thing kept slipping off. So we had to jury rig the hell out of it. I ended up just rolling it in, wrapping it up with tape, putting a pillowcase as a diaper, calling it quits.
We're chilling, dude. That was a mission.
I told her I put an effort in that, so.
Yeah, it looks like there's effort into it, you know? That's wild patient, though.
So yeah, it's been an interesting couple days, or couple nights, I should say. I'm already thinking about day shift because we're switching after these 3 weeks. Literally got 9 more shifts left. But the first day, got back and actually floated to Med-Surg / like a Tele unit, but it's been more Med-Surg. And I've had a pretty decent, uneventful night. I had alert anointed times, 4 patients, everybody's walkie-talkie, pain meds, they're sleeping. I got an admission from another hospital because they're kind of packed. In Texas, there's a surge. It's been a little bit busy. Some nurses are sick, but he was decent. It was more about, he was a guy with some oil background. So me and him were just talking about the world, economics, what's happening. Interesting guy. And I had another lady on a BiPAP mask that had severe anxiety, and she didn't need BiPAP. She literally had BiPAP on just to make her feel better, and she was on oxygen just to make her feel better. She was setting 100%. But it's crazy how debilitating anxiety is, to the point where you get IBS, you get depression, you just have such crippling diseases from it. And like throughout my shift, I just had a lot of hearts to hearts, which was one time with her, and I literally talked her through the anxiety, not to kind of slow down her breathing, focus on her breathing, having a little mindset shift, how separating yourself from your thoughts just so you don't feel so anxious. And she was just saying how she was, thinking about the future, paying the bills, all that stuff, and she kind of got into the present moment, and she literally felt better to the point where her tightness in her throat went away, and she didn't have tightness in her chest just from all that. So it's just wild how powerful the mind is, and she was thankful for me. So that was a good time.
Man, that's some shit, because anxiety revs up like your sympathetic nervous system,
yes.
Right? So like everything revs up, your heart rate, everything, and you're not in homeostasis, so that's why you get all these like debilitating things going on.
Yeah. And fun fact for you guys, I had to put a Foley in today on a patient because he was retaining. Of course, he was intubated. And fun fact, if you're on pressors, you shouldn't remove the Foley because levofed and all those pressors, it stimulates alpha receptors, and you actually have alpha receptors in the bladder. So what happens is it causes a retention there because it squeezes just like it does in your vasculature.
And plus, it was intubated. So it's what the hell? Like, I don't know, like, yeah, some of these protocols in the hospitals that people do because based on numbers and shit, it's just like the clerk was saying that people that make these rules and these protocols, they don't make a step into healthcare. They don't see what happens on bedside or anything like that. So they don't understand. They just see it as a number. And we gotta do this because this is happening. And it's
just like the CDC and the HA, American Heart Association, switching all these guidelines for us. Why don't you guys step into the hospital, see what the frick is happening, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so my last 2 shifts, my first night back, I got floated to ER. And it's wild because the night before I went to the ER, they had over 200 admissions, or over 200 patients that they saw throughout that night. And then when I was there, when I got on nights, it was about, damn, made something right there. But when I got on 7 p.m., they were already at 175. So I'm pretty sure on the night shift that I worked, we hit well over 200 for sure. It's super busy, dude. Super busy. I actually had 3 admissions that I did, and I just held the ICU patients, with me. One of them was there for overdose. So we had her on a Narcan drip, and she was chilling for me all night. She was sleeping, and then I fixed her up, and then 6 o'clock came in. Her significant other came in, threw a fucking scene, a shit show. He's like, she hasn't done any kind of heroin for the last 3 years. I mean, he wasn't wrong. She didn't come in for opioids. She came in for amphetamines, meth, and then alcohol.
And other drugs.
And doing other drugs. and she's on methadone. She's like, you know, fuck you guys, why we don't come to the hospital, because you guys know what the fuck to do. You guys just do whatever the fuck you guys want.
Don't swear so much because YouTube's gonna ban us.
I was trying to be as little as possible. So I was swearing, caused the scene, and literally he came in, and then 6:30 hit, they both signed out AMA. He literally like woke her ass up and literally took her out of there, dude. Yeah, he was so upset, he was so pissed, but it's understandable because like methadone, like people couldn't go through methadone with withdrawals. It makes sense. We weren't giving her methadone. We had her on Narcan. But yeah, methadone withdrawal sucks too. So you gotta be careful with that as well.
Yeah, just a pharmaceutical heroin, basically.
Yeah, my other lady, because I had 3 of them. My other lady, she was on a Cardine. Nothing crazy. She came in for chest pain. Gave her 120 of Lasix to pull that fluid off. Started her on Cardine. And then I had her titrated down once 7 o'clock rolled by. So she was basically made it like a regular floor. And then my third patient came in from, it's crazy. She came in from home. She's a hoarder. She was a hoarder and she was found down. And they think she was found down at home for like more than 3 days. Which is fucking crazy, dude.
That's probably some rhabdomyolysis.
Yeah, and they couldn't get her. They couldn't get through a door. They had to go through the window. They had to go through the window, and they had to take her out through the window. And they brought her to me. Like, she was on any kind of pressure. We just get her fluids, but like very, very, very sick and very unfortunate. She was like saying like
firefighters.
Yeah, she was like saying like what responses and shit. Like she was tough, but she wasn't ICU stat. She wasn't really ICU stats either. Just they gave it to me just. Because, they kind of had to.
And those that are wondering, when it comes to floating and being a travel nurse, everywhere we went, all the experiences we've had, people treat you nicely. It's not what you think where, you're making a lot more money so they're going to look down upon you. No, it's pretty much smooth sailing. Of course, you're a lone wolf, you better figure it out where stuff is. No one's going to baby you. But as far as staff, everybody's nice and helpful. Right,
like the ICU staff is very nice, very appreciative, and I feel like when we float, we can appreciate even more that we're travelers, and it's really cool. Like the 2 times that I floated to but to the ER, they're super happy that I was there and shit, helping me out and stuff. I was just helping them out. It's really cool, man. It's a good experience because, like, how things are done differently. Because when you're like on one unit, all you know is that one unit, how shit's done on there. Then when you go to a different unit, you can kind of brainstorm and you have like a wider scope of practice almost. Because like some hospitals prefer to give like one medication over another. Like for example, this unit we had a pulmonary hypertension patient. It wasn't our patient, but she was on the floor, and nobody ever really heard of Remodulin. And Remodulin is like a standard thing that we used to give back in Chicago, right? So now they were kind of treating it differently. It's super interesting. It's a good experience, and I don't see why nurses don't do it more.
Why not do it?
Yeah, 100%.
Another interesting case I had today. I had a patient that meth user. So bad cardiomyopathy and all that. But the big thing with him is we got to extubate this guy. This guy is on max out on Precedex at 1.4. He's on 10 milligrams an hour Versed. He's on 150 mics of fentanyl an hour. And this guy just wakes up, moves around, thrashes around. How can you do a breathing trial? So in the ICU, in order to extubate and pull the breathing tube out, you gotta be following commands. Your heart rate and vital signs have to be stable. And then what's gonna happen is we put on CPAP and you're gonna breathe on your own for 30 minutes. Then we're gonna check out blood gas. If you're good there, we're gonna pull the tube. This guy doesn't look like he's gonna tolerate any of that. So with him, you gotta basically do a Hail Mary. You gotta basically just turn off the sedation, pull the tube, and hope for the best, because
until he starts breathing.
Yeah, exactly, because he's just one of those patients, you just can't control him. He doesn't want to follow commands only when he wants to. Unfortunately, he's just a bad patient to have intubated. He's got to wish for the best when you pull the tube.
Yeah, he's definitely a mess. Definitely a mess. Yeah, it's interesting because like I'm so used to like not giving fluids in a hospital and like having people dry as possible. So like I'm always like almost like scared to give a lot of fluid boluses, is because like I'm not used to it. So it always trips me out because I'm used to like if you ever give fluids at my prior hospital, we always had to do an x-ray and we always had to see what the EF was. Because like for example, if the EF is like 30-35% and you give somebody a liter, you could throw them into pulmonary you get a fluid overload, pulmonary hypertension, not just hypertension, but pulmonary edema, you could throw them into that. So I'm always iffy. And so like so when you guys give fluids, you give another tip, like check the chest x-ray, because if the chest x-ray looks like there's a bunch of fucking fluid in the lungs, then maybe you should give some albumin first and then resort to the fluids last. Or if they have a cardio, like any kind of cardiac study, like an echo, take a look at that, because their EF fraction is low. You maybe want to give them 500 mLs of fluid instead of the liter. So I'm always like tripped out about giving fluids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you watch the previous part number 4, because it's part number 5, I had a patient that was COVID that had it for the past like 3 days, and he was looking bad. When I came in that shift, my last shift to work, he was intubated, he was on 3 pressors, and he was a 1-to-1. He was busy. Oh, geez, I forgot about that guy. That happened on like my shift of 3, because it's been such a freaking long shift. Yeah, he was just a hot mess. We should have checked that blood gas.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. I don't know if I told you guys in the videos, but you know,
it was like 3 days of asking for it.
Yeah, I was asking for blood gas for a couple of days. Wasn't done. pH was 7.1, but the pH from a couple of days ago was 7.6. You know, everybody goes off chest x-rays, and that's what happened. He's just sick man now. He's still intubated and prone, and RIP, wishing the best for the man.
Well, hopefully everyone learned from that, you know, there.
I hope so too.
All right, guys. Have a safe evening.
Peace.